program, and together we can continue to make a difference in this costly crime. And now, HEAT and the ATPA are proud to present the Law Enforcement Television Network Spotlight, Detecting the Stolen Motor Vehicle.
Hello, I'm Bill Quiet. Welcome to this edition of Patrol. Vehicle theft is on the rise again. After a 10-year decline, the number of auto thefts in the United States rose by 1.2% in the year 2000 to almost 1,200,000 vehicles. You, as a patrol officer, can make a difference and enhance your career at the same time. Investigating stolen motor vehicles is an opportunity for patrol officers to use and develop all of their investigative skills. Good vehicle theft investigators will be good investigators because all of their investigative skills will be brought into play on each and every investigation.
If you're good at observing about vehicle theft, you are going to be a good investigator because you are using all your tools as a police officer to do your job, to, in this case, look for a stolen vehicle. But you need to, how to be observant. You have to be able to look at documents and understand them. You need to know how to interview people and talk to people. You need to be able to process evidence depending on where you are in a specific investigation. And if you can do all those things, that's just going to carry over into every other kind of investigation you do. You will be a good investigator if you can put a good vehicle theft case together.
Ken Tassi served 23 years with the Michigan State Police before retiring in January of 2002. He currently is working as a vehicle theft investigator and trainer for the Michigan Department of State Police Auto Theft Prevention Authority. He says being a good vehicle theft investigator requires only that you take one small step and heighten your awareness of what you see every day.
As a patrol officer out on the street, you're looking for anything that's unusual, outside of the norm. You're looking for things like vehicles that are parked in parking lots that normally aren't there or are parked away from other vehicles that are in the same parking lot. You want to watch for vehicles that have their windows down in inclement weather, something that's unusual that may indicate that the window actually isn't there, it's been broken out, and they can't roll the window up. It's simple stuff that we all take for granted every day, and it's the same thing that even a citizen or you and I out there on the street, when we drive and we're going to the store, we're going to the movies, we see this every day. You're driving down the street and somebody comes at you and they have their bright headlights on. And we all do it. We flash our brights on and off to say, hey, you've got your bright lights on. Police officers do it in the cars too. It's just, well, you watch them pull out of a parking lot at night and they have their bright lights on, and so instead of stopping the car and telling them you have your bright lights on, they just flash their lights on and off to get them to turn their dims on. You know, again, what we're saying is don't let that opportunity to go by. Turn around and stop the car. You don't have to give a guy a ticket because he's got his bright lights on when he shouldn't have. You can say, excuse me, sir, did you realize that your bright lights are on? Can I see your driver's license, registration, and proof of insurance? And now you have an opportunity to look at who's in the car, at what the car is, and is this really belong to this guy? It's the same thing at night when you're driving by and the guy goes by and he's got no headlights on. And so we all do the same thing. We turn our lights on and off to let him know, hey, you forgot to turn your lights on. How do you know that that's what it is? How do you know it could be the fact that he can't turn his lights on because he's gone into the steering column, destroyed the steering column, and he can't turn the lights on? How many times have we all been behind a $40,000 SUV of some sort? And here in Michigan, if I've just purchased that, I can get a temporary tag that's attached inside the rear window of the vehicle. How do you know? And again, we talk to the police officers we come in contact with, and we say, how do you know? You're looking at this piece of paper through smoked tinted glass. How do you know it's just not a piece of paper cut to the same size with a felt tip pen to write out the date that it expires? How do you know unless you stop and talk to those people and just tell them, I can't read your temporary tag? You don't unless you stop. And that's what we mean by take that little extra step. Go just this little bit further and ask why. And they'd be amazed at what they can get themselves involved in. people have a tendency to make associations. And everybody, they'll drive by a wrecker, they'll see it hooking up to a car, and they'll think, oh, it's a wrecker hooking up a car to take it to a service station. We all think that. And what we try to say, tell our people is how do you know that that wrecker service that's hooking up to that car is legitimately hooking up to that car? How do you know unless you stop and talk to them? Just ask them. It may be perfectly legitimate. You may stop them at the very beginning, where if you were to run the car through the NCIC system, you will find that it comes back not stolen. But you've literally got out in front of them, and of course it's not stolen because it hasn't been reported stolen yet. You're on the leading edge of it. And we use that as an example of don't assume that what you see is really what you see. You have wreckers that are in residential areas at night, or in business areas at night where they're hooking onto a car or a truck or something like that to move it. And that's not uncommon, and they do that all the time. But how do you know that that's who they are and what they're doing unless you stop and talk to them? And even if they tell you, yes, we're hooking it up for John Smith and we're taking it to a repair facility because the car doesn't run, and you say, okay, fine, and you let them go, you've at least already talked to the driver, you know who he is, you've gotten his driver's license, you've got the license plate off the wrecker, you've got the license plate off the car, you have all that information, where if it turns out that it is being stolen and you can't determine that at the time, you can go back and at least you have someplace to follow up on. You're on the leading edge. If they know their motor vehicle code, and they know the laws as far as traffic and those kinds of laws and regulations, that there's not too many cars that are out on the street that they can't legitimately stop for some reason. It may be that the license plate tab doesn't look right on the car, so you run the license plate. They fail to signal a right turn and they turn. Those are legitimate reasons to stop a vehicle and speak to the driver. And we tell them that once that's done, and once you've determined that you can stop the vehicle, then there's a whole series of steps that you can go through to not only determine who the driver is, which is what you're going to do in any event, but also to look at the car. And again, take just that little extra bit of a step to determine what you have in front of you. Once that vehicle stop is made, you're going to walk up to the driver and you're going to ask them for the driver's license, registration, proof of insurance, and any documents they have regarding the vehicle. That's a matter of course. And we tell our people, never refuse any paperwork that somebody gives you, because you may find somebody that is nervous, and that's quite often the case because they don't want to be stopped by the police in the first place. But it also may mean that they are up to no good. And if they're desperately trying to find paperwork because they are unfamiliar with the car, then they may hand you something that is unrelated to the vehicle or have somebody else's name on it. It may be they actually hand you a registration, but it hasn't got their name on it. The name doesn't match who the driver says he is. And when you compare the driver's license to the registration. And so you have an opportunity to look through all these documents that they give you and make a determination as, how can you hand me these documents when all I've asked you for is your driver's license, registration, and proof of insurance? If they do give you the right documentation, now I can take that registration and I can compare it. I can step forward enough so that I can look through the driver's side windshield. I can look down at the VIN plate. I can physically compare the number to what the number is on the registration. But I also have an opportunity to take a look at the VIN plate, that surrounding area, the rosette rivets that hold the plate in place. Does it look like it's been tampered with? Does it look like the windshield has been physically removed and replaced? And so what you have is the rubber seal remaining from the old window and flaking in that area, which might indicate that the windshield has been removed so that the VIN plate could be removed and another VIN plate put it in its place. Those kinds of things, any kind of tampering in that area. And then depending on what you see, combined with what the driver has told you, you may have a legitimate reason to look further than just the VIN and the VIN plate to other identifiers on the vehicle that can help you determine the vehicle's true identity, and is it a legitimate vehicle or is it something that's stolen or disguised or something in that line.
Once you've checked the VIN plate and compared it with the vehicle registration, another vehicle identifier is the federal certification label, commonly found on the driver's side door. We'll look at the federal certification label and the location of other vehicle identifiers in more detail on a future program. The important thing to keep in mind is that as a patrol officer, you can make a difference by being aware of your surroundings at all times and then taking that one little extra step.
The joke is you know, the police officers always go into the donut shop to get coffee and donuts. Okay, fine. So when you get out of the car, what happens if you just walk by and glance into the car that happens to be parked by the door that you're going into to look at the steering column and to see if the ignition is punched out or missing? It doesn't take that much effort. It doesn't take any extra effort. You're already going into a building. You're going on a complaint to a residence and there's a vehicle parked in the driveway. How much effort does it take to just look at the steering column or look at the ignition to see if there's some kind of damage or tampering that might indicate that the vehicle there is stolen, which may indicate that the individual that's in this house may be some kind of criminal that you need to be aware of.
Tassie practices what he preaches, and actions always speak louder than words.
When we were talking earlier about how easy it can be and just paying a little bit of attention, taking that little extra step, we're on our way in to have lunch, and the Plymouth Barracuda, the blue Plymouth Barracuda that was parked here in the lot, I walked by it, slid over to the driver's side where I could take a look at the VIN plate. As we walked by, I looked down, and instead of having the rosette rivets attaching the VIN plate, I've got round, regular pop head rivets, which is, without looking at the rest of the number, without looking at the rest of the car, that's not appropriate for that particular car that we were just looking at.
So what did you do then?
Well, because of our situation and what we've been doing here over the last couple days, and being a little more prudent, we got a hold of the Lansing area auto theft team, Detective Sergeant Kyle McPhee, on the phone, and gave him the description of the car and where it was parked here in the parking lot, so that he could come over and take a look at it, which he did, and he comes to the same conclusion. We've got round pop head rivets, and so he stopped the car and talked to the owner. The owner, it turns out, is real cooperative. It appears that at this point he has just purchased this vehicle from a local used car dealership and gave us permission to look at the car, and that's why we were able to get the pictures of it. So Kyle and Doug and I took a quick look at it, and there are some problems with the car. Now, whether at this point that car is absolutely, we can say that it's stolen, we can at this point, but what we can say is there's a problem with it, and had that been a traffic stop on the street or something like that, then the street officer has a right, or could at that point impound that vehicle, as we've been talking about over this stuff. But with the situation that we've got here, we've got what may be an innocent purchaser, trying to keep a low profile. We want to keep him cooperative with Kyle, because Kyle's going to do the follow-up. We explained to him what the problem was, explained what could happen if it had been out on the street and not in this situation that we had here today. And so he allows us to take a look. We determined that there are some problems with it, that it needs a further examination. So in this particular case, instead of impounding the vehicle, Kyle has got the driver, the owner's, his name, his address, his telephone number, and has given the owner his business card with his telephone number. And because the gentleman was eating lunch too and had other people, they're going to make an appointment to get together and examine that car. Now, once the car has a complete examination and they get all the identifying numbers and secondary confidential numbers, then what Kyle will do is he will go and he will do a background and he will do a workup on it to determine if it is a legitimate vehicle or whether it's stolen. Because of the age of that vehicle, and it appears that it's been restored, it may be something as innocent as they took the car apart and took the VIN plate off in the restoration process. Well, now I don't have any rosette rivets, so I use pop rivets instead to reattach, and it may be a legitimate car. The other side of the coin is it may be stolen, but you're not going to know if you don't look. And we could have walked right by that and walked in and had lunch and never paid any attention to it. In my short conversation with the owner, I asked him how much he paid. That car, he paid $17,000 for that car. So that's quite a hefty chunk of change for a vehicle of that year. And what if it really isn't his? What if it's somebody else's? But you're never going to know that, and you're never going to get it recovered. And if it turns out that it is stolen, you're never going to be able to attempt to find a suspect unless you take that extra step like we did just when we were going to have lunch.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
My car was stolen while I was shopping.
Okay. You have your license, registration, and proof of insurance with you?
How many times have you taken a stolen vehicle report that just didn't seem that important? After all, the car is gone and it's not likely to be recovered, right? If that is your attitude, you may be missing the point and hampering your fellow officer's investigation later down the line.
when the officer goes in to take a vehicle theft report of any kind, he needs to keep in the back of his mind that the person that is actually making the theft report is the criminal. And what they're doing is they're attempting to, or beginning the stages of committing insurance fraud. They're making a false police report, that the car is not stolen, that they've made it disappear, they've made it go somewhere, they're hiding it somewhere, and then they're calling the police and saying, I want to report my vehicle stolen. They need to keep that in the back of their mind at all times when they're interviewing the supposed victim of the vehicle theft. Again, insurance fraud is becoming a big part of vehicle theft, in the broad picture of vehicle theft. And so from the officer's point of view, he needs to not necessarily trust anybody that he's talking to 100%, because your victim truly can be the bad guy. In my own experience, when I start out with the typical first-hand information, your name and address and the telephone numbers. I want to get all their telephone numbers. I don't want them to just give me a cell phone number. And quite often, if you've worked a service area for a long period of time, when somebody gives you a telephone number, you know that that's not a legitimate hard line, phone line to a residence or a business, that's a cell phone. I want to get all their numbers because I want to be able to recontact them and go back and re-interview them if I have to regarding the theft of their vehicle. I want to get a complete description of the vehicle. I mean complete. I want to talk to them, yes. I want to talk to them about the color and how many doors. And I want to get the VIN number off the car and what the license plate number was on the car at the time. But I also want to ask them about anything that is unusual about their car. And when I say unusual, what I'm talking about is things that have happened in the course of the life of the vehicle that would make it unique if I had 5 of all the same color and make and model and year vehicle all parked in front, that we could pick that vehicle out from the other 4 because it's unique. For example, a lot of people smoke. And a lot of times, you know, you're riding down the road, the window's down, the ash blows off, and you burn a hole in the carpet. You have little kids, and one of them gets sick in the back seat, and that leaves stains. Those stains become unique identifiers. That particular stain or that cigarette burn isn't going to be exactly the same in the same place on any other vehicle. And that may be one of the things that helps you determine if you have the vehicle that was reported stolen earlier. So you need to talk to these people. You truly want to talk to them about where the vehicle was at the time of the theft. Where were they at the time of the theft?
David 27 online.
When was the last time they saw the vehicle? You want to ask them questions like, how many sets of keys to the vehicle do you have? Do you have them? And then when they say yes, you want to say, can I see them? Because you want to physically take a look at them. You want to see what kind of keys they're handing you. Are they handing you original keys for the vehicle? Or are they handing you machine copies of the keys? They're not the original key. And then you have to ask your question, does that mean that they've lost a set of keys and had to replace it? Or does it mean that there's another set of keys floating out there so that they can hand you keys and somebody else still has another set of keys so that they can drive the vehicle around? You want to look if they hand you original looking keys to see if they're worn. A car that's 2, 3, 4 years old, you're going to see wear on the keys. It's not going to be bright and shiny and new. And if they tell you, yes, I only have 2 sets of keys for the vehicle, and you ask them for them and they produce 2 sets, and one of them's old and worn out and the other one is just brand spanking new, you need to, at least in your mind, say, why is that? What can be the reason for it? It can be legitimate. We're not saying you're going to be paranoid and say that everybody reporting their car stolen is committing insurance fraud. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is don't necessarily take everything that you see on just face value. Think about what they're telling you. Think about what they give you. The other reason is I can take those keys and I can say I'm going to keep the keys as evidence. Because if we recover your car down the road, we want to be able to use these keys to determine if there was any attempt to tamper with the ignition system. We want to be able to drive your car from wherever we find it to help you save on a toll bill. All those kinds of reasons can be used for taking that as evidence. I can take it and let the insurance company know that I have the sets of keys, because eventually the insurance company is going to want them when the car is if and when the car is recovered, so that they can drive the car and to an insurance auction to sell it.
Tassie says anytime you make a traffic stop, take a theft report, or have any contact with the public, be aware of the tools of the trade for the vehicle thief.
We're here at Schroyer's Used Auto Parts in Lansing, Michigan this afternoon. Schroyer's has been kind enough to allow us to basically come out into their salvage yard and play with their salvage pieces in an attempt over the next couple minutes to show you some of the ways that individuals are using to break into automobiles. One of the first ways that we want to talk about is where individuals will try to tack the door, either of the side doors on the vehicles. And one of the things that they're using nowadays is just common plastic or fiberglass strap banding tape. This is the kind of tape that when they send you out on the day shift to go and buy a box of Xerox copy paper because they ran out, this is the strap banding that you find around those types of boxes. Very common. But what happens is I can make this into a burglary tool, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to take and I'm going to fold this strap banding tape so that I've got a nice sharp crease and it makes it stiff in this length. Then, depending on the make and style of the car, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this strap banding tape and I'm going to push it through the window, or behind the window and between the window and the frame, until I get it into as far as I need it. And I'm attacking the post-type locks on the side doors. Once I get it there, I'm just going to take one of these ends and I'm going to pull it. And what it causes the strap banding to do is literally curve around to the door post. And once I've got that, then I take my other side and I pull it up tight. And now I've got it snugged right up tight against the door lock post. All I do is lift it up. I've raised the post and I'm into your car. One of the other ways individuals are using to attack the side doors to gain access is the use of common kitchen utensils such as butter knives, or in this case, in this example, is a cake decorating knife. Now what they do in these situations, and again it depends on the make, the model, and the year of the car, but they're attacking, they're attacking a post-style locking mechanism on the car door. And what they do is, if I use my hand as the door mechanism, what you have is you have the sheet metal up around in here, and what they do is they take this cake, in this example, the cake decorating knife, and I slide it up behind the door mechanism where the rubber seal and the sheet metal meet. I get it up high enough to the point where I reach the door post on the inside and I push it up. I raise it up, I unlock the door, and I'm in your car. The same principle applies with individuals that are carrying long, narrow screwdrivers such as this. And it's exactly the same principle. I get it up in behind the door mechanism till I can reach that post, I push up on the lock, and I'm into your car. One of the other things about these tools is they become better once they've been used 2 or 3 times and they bend. So if you've got an individual that's got a long, narrow screwdriver such as this, or even longer, but when you look at it, it's got a nice bend to it, you want to ask yourself the question why. Usually it's because it's already been used to get into one of these kind of doors, and now it's even better than it was when it started because it's got that nice natural hook to it. When you come in contact with individuals, you want to watch to see if they have large numbers of keys such as these. In this particular case, these are universal keys for heavy equipment. And when I say universal keys, in the construction industry, and we'll use this Caterpillar key as a demonstrator, but it's common to most of the major heavy equipment manufacturers. I have a universal key that works for all my equipment. If I'm out on a construction site and I need a piece of equipment, I either need to move it or use it, I can jump on it, I use my key, start it up, and I do what I need to do with the piece of heavy equipment. Once I'm done, I may have to go over to the other side of my construction site and use another piece. It's the same key. I don't have to worry about carrying a lot of keys around. Makes it very easy to work on a construction site and move and use your heavy equipment. But it also makes it very simple for a thief to walk on your construction site in the middle of the night, jump right up on your Case 580 backhoe loader, grab the key, turn it, start it, and drive it away as though it was theirs. And quite frankly, how many of us have seen that Case 580 backhoe loader driving down the street, never thought a thing of it, just naturally assumed that the guy driving it actually owned it? That may not be the case, and it's because these people can gain access to universal keys such as these. One of the other ways that somebody's going to try to attack you and my car is through the side window glass. And one of the mechanisms that they can use to do that is a simple spring-loaded punch. This spring-loaded punch cost me $5.95 at the local tool store. And all I need to do to break glass with this is I need to cock the spring mechanism inside. I hold the punch up against the glass, give it some pressure, and it pops the snap, and it snaps against the window glass, and it breaks it. And I'm into your car again for $5.95. And this is something that I can carry around in my pocket. I can lay it down in the seat of my car. And quite frankly, if you come up on me on a traffic stop or you find me with this and I just say, well, I'm a mechanic and this is my spring-loaded punch, you're not going to think anything of it. One of the other methods that's common or currently being used to break into side window glass comes from this, the common spark plug. If you got an individual that you come in contact with, again, as a result of a traffic stop, you have a reason to stop and frisk him, whatever the reason, and you find that this individual in his pocket has these pieces of white porcelain, the first question you better ask is what is he doing with white porcelain chips? Because quite frankly, the only thing that he's using these for is to break into vehicles. And again, it comes from this, a common spark plug. All I do is lay this down, I wrap it in a rag so that I want to save the pieces and I don't want them to go all over. I hit it with a hammer real hard and I break these chips off. Once I've got these chips, I put them in my pocket and I'm down the street and I'm looking for your car to break into, because all I'm going to do is, if I find the right car, all I'm going to do is take one of these porcelain chips, I'm going to stand back against the side window and I'm going to throw it real hard and I'm going to shatter the side window glass. The interesting thing about this is, and I'm not a physics major and I can't tell you why, is that when I throw this against the side window glass and it shatters, it's quiet. It doesn't make a lot of noise. Unlike if I happen to want to get into your car and there's a rock or a small stone and I pick that up and use that to break your side glass, it has a tendency to make a louder noise. The porcelain chips, again, because of the way porcelain is made and the way it strikes against the glass, causes it to break, but it causes it to break silently, quietly. So you're not going to hear me in the middle of the night come up into your driveway and throw that piece against your window. We've talked over the last couple minutes of different methods that people are using to break into cars, to gain access to the cars and either take something out of the vehicle or take the vehicle itself. Understand that what we're trying to show you here is that these are common things that anybody can carry. This is not some kind of sophisticated technical techniques these people are using. And if you come in contact with these people, you need to pay attention to what they're carrying, what they have in the car, because what they may have isn't necessarily being used legitimately, like common vice grips or other tools, again, body tools that they're using to break into the car. It's you guys out there, it's the police officer, the guy on the street. When you make your initial observation, that's what's going to eventually lead to the recovery of a stolen vehicle. It's going to identify suspects, which through investigation is going to lead to an arrest and a prosecution. And that all based on you taking that one little step, and instead of standing here today, taking one little step and becoming just a little more observant and paying attention to the people that you come in contact and what kinds of things they have in their cars and what they're carrying on their person.
The bottom line is you can make a difference in motor vehicle theft. Being aware, being suspicious, and taking that one little extra step. After all, isn't that the reason you got into law enforcement in the first place?
You didn't come into police work. You didn't come into law enforcement to aspire to middle management, to push papers behind a desk. Some of us all eventually will get there because we find jobs that we are interested in, but that's not why you started. You became a police officer. You got into the law enforcement profession because you wanted to go out and be on the street. You wanted to find the bad guy. You wanted to arrest him. You wanted to bring him into justice. You wanted to do investigations. You wanted to be out there and mix it up. And this is a way for you to do that through a vehicle theft investigation, and taking that little step and going beyond just the traffic stop and getting the paperwork and writing the ticket. Anybody can write a ticket. We want you to, I want you to go out and go after that car, because that one single incident is going to take, and it will expand and it will get bigger, and it can lead you in all kinds of directions. Not only in vehicle theft, it can lead you into narcotics, it can lead you into conspiracies, it can lead you into insurance fraud, it can lead you into organized vehicle theft from a simple traffic stop.
Sure. All right, go ahead and put your hands behind your back and interlace your fingers for me. Do you have anything on you that I need to know about at all?
No.
Nothing at all? Nothing in your waistline at all?
No.
Okay. These just keys? All right. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put you in handcuffs. I'm going to put you in my patrol car. You're not under arrest right now. I just need to figure out what's wrong with this vehicle, okay? Okay, come on back here with me. Go ahead and lean right up against here for a second. Okay, go ahead and have a seat in here. I need to get a couple more numbers off of your car so I can make sure that everything's okay. All